Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
The GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network, hosted by me, Ethan Orfe, and also my good friend Brice Lewis. Brice, how are you doing?
I'm good, Ethan.
How's life?
Man, it's just, it's going through it every day, man. Just trying to be better man than I was yesterday.
I can get down with that. That's a good way of looking at life. Just trying to self-improvement, self-critiques, building your case to be a better man.
That also reminds
every
me,
day.
I need to show you something when all this is over, sir.
All right. Not aware of whatever this is, but I'm down with it. Got a few things to talk about today. XFL Week 4. Looking back, seeing where we got some pretty good games from what, some score lines, a lot more competitiveness from across the board. And also we're seeing some, I guess, tiers of teams kind of changing about. What we thought we were is not what we thought we were in some teams. And then, some Week 5, going to do some draft combine talk, some draft talk, some general NFL news, and of course our divisional breakdown. We're going to be doing that at the end. But first, we have to go back to Week 4, last weekend, XFL. We have three out of the 4 games were one-score games. And granted, the XFL can have one-score games kind of a lot because of the way their, PAT scoring is, but most of them were one-score games. So by one touchdown or less. So a lot of good games. One was not so good, which I guess which is the most shocking game that was not as good from an entertainment standpoint, I suppose. The DC Defenders got shellaxed this week, 25-0 by the Tampa Bay Vipers. So shout out to Tampa Bay.
Getting the first win of the season. So.
This is the second week in a row where DC was handled, I suppose.
Especially after the first 2 weeks where they dominated their team.
Yeah, it's kind of like a 2-week period of dominance, and now we're not so sure what's going on. But it's not looking good, man. What do you have to say about the DC Defenders? Or how do you feel about them? Do you think that we overlooked what they were doing and who they were playing against? Granted, they played against 2 teams that seemingly maybe it was just like the first 2 weeks of the season, I suppose. So they played Seattle, which Seattle put up 19 against them. And then they played New York, which arguably still might be the worst team in the league, although they have picked up 2 wins. Not back to back, but they have picked up some wins here or there, 2-2, just like the DC Defenders. So, can we really say there's tiers? There's only 8 teams, so
yeah. I mean,
there's only one undefeated team, Houston.
Roughnecks up, baby.
And then I would argue that the Battlehawks are the second best team.
Yeah, I go with that.
And then we have
maybe Dallas Renegades third.
Yeah, Dallas or Seattle. I always find Seattle may lose a lot. Like I don't think their record does them justice of how well they play. I think they play people hard, and I feel like they're a better team than what the record says they are. But I probably would have to put LA above Seattle because I think their record's better. Like they just have more wins, and they had a really nice win against DC. But You know, actually, LA has only had one win, so I take that back. So I think Seattle is also one win. I just have to double check before I go. So maybe they're you can really just go either one. Yeah, both of them only have one win, so you can kind of flip flop. So both of those teams, they compete, right? And then after that, was Tampa Bay, and then New York. So here we are. This is the XFL. Mm-hmm. I just feel like even though you can't honestly say that they need to expand right now because the competition is not it hasn't reached a peak level to where like these games are entertaining because both teams are good, more so than wow, some team just made a nice play or something. Like you're just kind of looking at guys who you're interested in watching, like Tom gave us a really good performance for the most part, and then we see this guy for Seattle come in and do his thing, looking like the poor man's Russell Wilson out there.
Hey, I mean that quarterback you talk about is B.J. Daniels. He was he used to play at UCF and I mean
Central Florida,
South Florida. My bad. That's why I was talking about USF.
USF.
Yeah,
okay.
He used to play there. He was the GOAT there. He was one of the best quarterbacks they've had that came through there. Broke a lot of records at that time. He helped South Florida actually be a decent team at that time. So I think that was still when the Big East existed in football. So before it became the American. Yeah. So, yeah, man. So it's good seeing him play again. Like what you said. I think we're getting to that point where you're starting to see teams maybe separate themselves a little bit. Teams are figuring out themselves more, getting more practice time, knowing their strengths and weaknesses. Where, like I said before, when the season started, didn't have a lot of camp, didn't have a practice. So it's like you're kind of like, I mean, it's easy to kind of start slow because you don't really know who you are or what you do well. You think you know, but you really don't know till you get out there.
Right.
And I think that's what's happening. I mean, like you said, there really is no need for expansion because obviously that's a little bit more detail because of the fact that if they expanded, they need to make sure they can get enough players to still have another competitive rosters.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing too.
You know, they would have to probably, that's where they talk about the whole, maybe letting a guy from college leave to the XFL and then, you know, maybe guys who, because you have to understand, not every potential talented player that's available went to the XFL this year. Yeah. Some are just still sitting on there just waiting that you get another shot with a tryout with another team in the NFL when training camp comes around and OTAs. So if they can get more and more of those players to come to their league, then they can potentially be able to form out rosters that will still be just as competitive, which we've seen will be maybe, I don't know, maybe guys from the Canadian Football League might come. Some of the better Canadian Football League players might come. It just really depends. It's almost like I said, it's an alternative where a player can just, I guess, if things don't work out or they need, or like, you know, a player gets injured, sometimes that derails them. They can go there, improve, okay, I'm ready, and then get back into the league.
Well, the thing is, it kind of has to be, if you feel like you're bigger, like, for instance, Johnny Manziel got into a Twitter feud and then deleted his Twitter, then got it back and then deleted tweets about wanting to play in the XFL and then saying, I don't want to play in the XFL, and saying it never was, like, it was just a big troll job or whatever the case was. Regardless, he's not playing in XFL. Of course, we know Colin Kaepernick was offered, but he said he doesn't want, he would have to have an exuberant contract to even consider it. So guys who feel like they are NFL talent or like have the skills to still be in the NFL and feel like they would end up becoming, you know, the face of the league because of their popularity already, either they want super money to play in this league or they just feel like it's beneath them. So I think there's a tier. I think there's guys who need obviously a comeback. Like, I'm not saying that I believe that Josh Gordon is a guy who would not dominate this league, but I feel like if you had Josh Gordon in here, I feel like people would watch. But I'm not also think that Josh Gordon probably thinks that he has probably better things he could be doing or probably be in the NFL again before he try the XFL. think for guys who get stints in the NFL and get constant stints, I don't know if the XFL is going to be the thing that keeps them, like, you know, this is where I prove my point. Because a lot of guys who get chances in the NFL already have the talent, and, like, it's more so either it could be off the field or it just could be injury stuff or whatever the case may be. But I don't know. Going into the next segment, as we're about to wrap this one up, I want to ask you how you generally feel how it's been going. Like, 4 weeks is a pretty good sample size, so we're going to go ahead and look at just exactly how we consume this now and how we look at it going forward, because, you know, we do in this media cycle that we do as sports people, even in the small media cycles, we have to look at the big picture all the time. So let's go ahead and take a break.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, so Brice, we're leading in to a new segment with this. I have a question for you.
What's up, sir?
Is it working? Is the XFL working as we're going into week 5? Is it working for you? Was it just a really nice piece of entertainment coming out of a week of no football or 2 weeks of no football, and then you're just like, oh, this is kind of cool, and then it's kind of teetered off, slowing down? Because I think that for some people, it's slowing down not because of the skill on the field, but more so this is just something we've never had before, and it's not as an adrenaline entertainment rush as much as you'd like it to be, to take you away from what you'd be doing during an NFL offseason. So, like, this is how I see it. In the NFL, or when the NFL season is underway, first of all, there's no Saturday games, but generally there's college football. So some guys are college football guys, some guys are NFL guys, some guys are both. And I'm generally speaking from, I guess, a position of NFL guys, because people who like NFL, they play one day, or they play Sunday, Monday, Thursday night, right?
They play 3.
People plan their weeks around watching the NFL. They have favorite teams. They have storylines they want to see. And they know a lot of people don't work on Sunday. They still plan their Sundays around NFL scheduling and their weeks around Monday Night Football, Thursday night, right? Saturday night's kind of the freebie for, you know, NFL watchers, to where if they're not into college or they just don't feel like it's just too many teams to keep up with, they'll watch when it gets closer to playoffs or whatever the case may be. They're doing stuff with their families, or they're doing daily tasks, or they're out in the yard doing yard work, or whatever the case may be. And now in the off season, it just kind of amplifies, because now you just get your Sundays a little bit more freer. Or maybe you're a basketball guy. Maybe you're watching ABC, Sunday basketball, or whatever the case may be. We're about to head into March Madness. Where does this league go from here? Because I feel like it's losing a bit of momentum as far as a TV attraction, from taking people away, and especially as we're moving into more bigger things in the sporting world, as, you know, baseball is about to kick back off again. Like I said, March Madness is coming real soon. In fact, it's March now, so it's about to get involved in tournaments and conference championships and stuff like that. What do you think? How has it been going for you? Because I still don't feel like the games are the reasoning. Like, the games are exciting enough for what the product is, and the presentation isn't bad.
I think one of the things about it is just like this. I feel like the first thing we have to think about is this is new.
Right.
And you have to understand, NFL's been along for a long time. The one thing that with people we have to realize is that it's not going to always be like, okay, as soon as you start something, it's just going to continue to have a bunch of supporters week after week off the bat. What matters, I think, is do they have a consistent maybe fan audience at these games in terms of just the average attendance they get, and also do they continue to still put out good talent, good work. I think one thing we also think about too is that the NFL has 32 teams.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not 32 states that have a team, but you have 28, 27 teams that have states that have a team.
Right.
So you have 27 states who have a sport that it can be invested in. So that's a lot of people. That's 27 states where you have people who are going to watch it. And then you have the XFL only have 8. So, because if you look at the ratings and you look at by state, of course the teams that are playing have the highest too, because that's their team from their state. But then you have just 8 people here and there from other states. And I think that's it. That's why maybe expansion could work. Because then because think about it. If we get a team in Atlanta, people are going to now from Atlanta start watching it more because we have a team here. And so that will help provide more people to actually watch the programming. Also, I feel like it's one of those things where I think sometimes it's nostalgia a little bit. It's new. It's fresh. Let's check it out. Because think about it. If you go off social media, everybody loved it. And then yet it's lost viewers week by week. And I don't think it's because they don't like it anymore. I just feel like it's one of those things I feel like it just has to kind of stick around for a minute and sustain. And, after that, it'll start to have and retain its audience and then maybe build and grow an audience. Also stars. Stars is also another thing. Obviously, NFL has every star you can think of that's available. If people want to see Julio, people want to see Tom Brady, people want to see Derrick Henry, people want to see all these people. XFL, in terms of star power, outside people maybe you watched in college. That's why they tried to market Cardale Jones, because everybody, the perception is out of it. Most of the players in the league, everybody kind of knows who Cardale Jones is. Because if you watch college football, you watch Ohio State, you know who he is. Mm-hmm. And so that's why they tried to market it around him, because people know who he is. Where you have a lot of players that people don't know who they are. So then as a fan, as a casual, you're not going to be like, I don't know these people. I'm learning these people. So my investment into these people are not there.
Yeah.
Where if you know a person, you're like, oh, I'll watch it because I know him. That's why if you look at the statistics, every DC Defenders game, Ohio's in the top 4 every time because he played Ohio State. So he has that investment of Ohio State fans. You know what I'm saying?
But the thing is, the way I see it now, so I've learned that after 4 weeks we've been comparing, or at least me, I've been comparing it wrong. It's no longer, you can't really comp it to football like NFL or maybe even college, because those things have super lineage. I think the trajectory that the XFL is trying to land is a trajectory that that MLS soccer has. So I think their comparisons are more similar to where the MLS is not getting top end talent most of the time. And if they are, they're getting people at the tail end of their careers and they want to retire in the US or wherever the case may be. But they've had steady growth and now they're really expanding, but it took some time. And it's still not a hot commodity in the US. It's still not a top 3 sport for US people to be into, but soccer has been growing steadily among the youth and people play it more, and thus people have been more invested into their local, soccer clubs. Not saying that they won't have the youth aspect as far as the XFL, but as far as growth in programming and getting people to come out to games and stuff like that, and already being on major networks, having network deals like they do with Fox, FS1, with ESPN, that's already huge. So, and they have a really good time slot. They're not competing with people.
I've noticed all their games are always around big events. Like Sunday, it was like, you know how NBA has their like primetime game.
Yeah.
Well, they obviously they had 2 on Sunday, so they couldn't avoid both. But for the first primetime game, which was earlier in the day, they didn't have a game. That's why the games were actually later.
Yeah.
They usually have a game early and then a game in the evening. Now they had a game in the evening, game at night, because they had to adjust to that primetime game. They've definitely scheduled it where they feel like, at best, unless you are very interested in something else, they should be able to get your attention if you wanted to watch a sport.
Yeah. So I feel like this is like, the XFL right now is for people who are kind of like football, like super fanatics, like they can't get enough of the sport, and they're not getting people who are like, casuals. Yeah. And I don't know if they ever will get casuals, but they will. I think at a certain point, they're going to realize that they're going to market this to more to the hardcores, but the people who are like so hardcore to where like they're not looking for perfection. They're just looking for they're looking for their football fix. And it's also like kind of grimy. It's not like straight up like beautiful football. It's not the best of the best. And they know it's not. Kind of like, I don't know. It's like underground. It's like underground football.
Well, I have a question. So what if, let's just say what if the XFL was able to get Colin Kaepernick and let's say Tim Tebow because he's popular. Do you feel like the league would be more popular because those 2 players would be in the league?
I think it'll have bumps in viewership. I don't know if it'll make it popular. I don't think those 2 would stay for very long.
I mean, it's like for the season, so at least get eyes on that season.
Well, I mean, yeah, sure, but at that point, I still don't think they'd stay very long, so they might leave after the season, right? Do whatever the next thing for them is to do. I highly doubt anybody who's that good is going to sign for a multi-year deal with the XFL unless they're getting super money. Well, I mean, as in like,
or are you just talking about just in like
mostly Colin and like Colin types rather than the like Tebow is more like, that's the thing. It's more like a sideshow thing at that point. And then once Tebow's done for his contract, you got to find the next sideshow, and you got to find the next sideshow.
And that's why they might want to put some investment into college players.
Yeah, because at that point, you're just looking for the next guy to drive your product, not because the product is, entertaining on its own, but because we have these, I guess, pseudo-celebrities or celebrities that people still care about or have cult followings for that's going to watch it. And that's good for views, but at the end of the day, is that good for the growth of your product and the integrity of, your sport and sporting event? So I'm not too sure. However, we got to go to break. So, all right. Coming up, we're going to be talking about Tua Tagovailoa and why I think the Redskins might be a possible outcome for them.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Brice, are you aware of the Tua Tagovailoa, standout quarterback for University of Alabama, Crimson Tide?
Yeah, man, definitely. Mr. Tua has been a big commodity ever since he declared in this entire season.
Listen, what if I were to tell you that all the reports of him going to Miami at number 5 could possibly not happen? Like, we've been thinking that, he's a lock for Miami. It makes sense. He'll take over for Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Ryan Fitzpatrick will either, retire or he'll, be a backup, whatever he chooses to do with his life. But we're forgetting about a team that I had an argument with a close friend of mine. I've known him for a few years. He's a big Redskins fan. And I asked him, what about Tua to the Redskins? And he said, and I quote, that I would be making my retirement from the team. I would be done as a fan. And we got into it because he was saying that why would you do that? We have more needs around the team, and we'll be losing potentially top 10 pass rusher in the NFL coming in the draft, as in Chase Young at number 2. And I said, I understand all of this, but why is it that teams have to sit and kind of take in the sunk cost of players at the quarterback position who are basically not bust, but they're not good, right? And now you have to be stuck with a guy who's not good for at least 2 to 3 years before you say it's time to restart and fresh out the deck and get another guy. Why do you always have to wait? Why is it always this waiting period? Why do you have to wait to see if Haskins is going to prove himself to be a better prospect when I feel like Tua was always a better prospect than Haskins when they played at the same time? Tua was the number 1 ranked quarterback before injury, before Joe Burrow decided to torch the college football universe. And then even after injury, after Joe Burrow's the best college football season for a quarterback ever seen, he's still 2. It's not like he dropped 3 spots or 4. He's just 1 below, 1 notch. Joe Burrow doesn't play this well. Guess who's number 1? Guess who Cincinnati's probably taking? I just don't understand. Like, I'm not saying that I have the seeing all, have the third eye on the top of my head, and I know that Tua is going to be the next Russell Wilson or something like that. However, I still think he's a pretty good prospect, and I'm pretty sure you probably have a better sample size of what Tua can be in the NFL more than what you know with a Haskins whose confidence we don't know of because he was put in a situation. He was never wanted to be drafted by his head coach, probably drafted by Snyder, didn't play at first. The head coach didn't want to play him, put him in because Case Keenum was a train wreck, and then he just got battered around, and the games were just not good for the Redskins last year. I would not say that Haskins had a fair shot, but at the same time, when he was in there, he didn't look all that great, didn't look all that hot. And I asked my friend, what is the deal with the idea that, giving another guy another year to try and prove that he's average? Because what quarterback ever in the history of the game, like, from a bad situation, right? They're leaving, their previous season was a bad situation. Either they go to a new team or the coach leaves or whatever. The next season directly afterwards is a much better product for them. I just never seen it. Besides, I only have one example, and he's in Miami right now, as in Ryan Fitzpatrick, because Ryan Fitzpatrick has seen the highs and the lows of playing the quarterback position to where he's had hot streaks comparable to, like, I've never seen. He looks like the next greatest quarterback ever. He looks like he doesn't belong to play in the league anymore. And that's about as where he is now is a serviceable quarterback who can start for you. But you know what Ryan Fitzpatrick is. You know what he can be. And that's about as good as I can see. Personally, I can see somebody like Haskins to be. Maybe he's better. Maybe I'll be wrong. I'm okay with that. But from what I've seen, I just don't see Haskins being anything better than a Ryan Fitzpatrick type. And if you want Ryan Fitzpatrick for your team to run as a quarterback, then that's on you. That's fine. That's how you feel. But maybe I'm not the person that wants to sit there and wait for another year of mediocrity, because that's essentially what you're asking for, when you can go get somebody like Tua and then continue to build on somebody with a rookie contract who might be the next greatest quarterback to come in And instead of trying to say, well, if, Haskins is not good, we'll just draft, Trevor Lawrence, or we'll go get the guy at Ohio State. But you just never know. There's no guarantee. So you're just thinking that, so the plan is to not because you're taking Chase Young because you believe in Haskins, but you're taking Chase Young because you believe that if Haskins still sucks, we'll just be bad and we'll go to number 2. Like, that's not how you run a franchise, in my opinion. Anyway, that's my Haskins thing. You may respond.
I mean, you make some good points. I think the thing about it is, I understand why they would consider drafting Haskins. It would put a wrench in Miami's plans because there have been reports that Miami wants Tua, and Tua's camp prefers Miami, and they even they've been calling just in case they needed to trade up to get him. Mm-hmm. And obviously, if the Redskins do that, that would be a wrench because, I mean, if they want Tua, then Miami would probably have to give up more to get them to reconsider.
Yeah,
and I understand. I mean, I saw a report earlier that one of the reasons why they may want to draft Tua is because to give competition to Haskins. Because this isn't because them drafting Tua isn't them saying, okay, yeah, he's our quarterback. It's basically like, listen, we're going to have 2 young guys, and then they're going to compete. And if Tua is truly better, then he'll play. But if Haskins makes strides, then he'll play.
You know what this sounds like? That also happened in Washington a few years back. Robert Griffin III and Kirk Cousins all over again.
Yeah, basically.
But this time, we don't know which one is Kirk Cousins. The one who ends up winning at the end of the day. Albeit due to injury of Robert Griffin III. But still, who was the Kirk Cousins in that situation?
I mean, you probably have to go with Tua just because
because that would be the guy Haskins that Ron Rivera wants if he drafts him, right?
I mean, yeah, I guess you could say that. I think it's one of those things where I think if you're a fan of the Redskins, I mean, I understand both sides of the spectrum. I think it's one of those things where you gotta think. I think some people look at the team of the Redskins.
Right.
Tua's coming off the hip. Obviously, if his medical checks out, everything's cool. But what's one of the reasons why, for example, Josh Rosen hasn't done anything in the league? He's been put in bad situations.
This is what I'm saying.
and technically, Dwayne's in a bad situation. And if you draft Tua, you're putting him in that bad situation too. Because it's been shown, unless you have the coach and the structure of an organization, it's going to be hard for you to overcome a lot of I forgot that word. A lot of just not great constructive organizational energy. I don't know.
I can't think of the word for you either.
But yeah, and so I would think, you would need to make sure you put him in a good position to succeed. Like, obviously, you got Tua coming off a hit. If you draft Tua, you better make sure the offensive line is set because you don't want to put him out there and then he gets hurt.
Right, and Trent Williams, I don't know if he's coming back.
Exactly, and we know he can be a Pro Bowl tackle in this league. It's just...
But are we sure that... Well, what makes them think that Trent Williams is coming back anyway?
He might not, that's the thing.
Right, so maybe they're
thinking Ron Rivera can convince him. I mean, they've had some talks, and they've had some positive talks, but we don't know if that's going to get him back in the building.
Right. Yeah, we'll just have to really wait and see. I'm of the mindset that guys like people like the Bears, for example. I think the Bears have a pretty good organization overall. I just think that they either right now they feel like it's time to go, or if they don't feel like it's time to go, well, it's time to go as far as letting Trubisky go. Like, it's time. The project is not. It's not going to pan out to anywhere. Trubisky's not just going to all of a sudden become Tony Romo or something like that. This is it. Like, this is what we've seen so far. And you have a team overall that can get it done. Like, they can go to the playoffs and win some games. But instead, you're trying to force this thing in, putting in Trubisky. You have the Trubisky guys, the followers, the cult following that still believe in him. And at the end of the day, go get another quarterback, man. Like, go get somebody at least to challenge, like, somebody to put in there, when things go astray. Mm-hmm. Like, a la Dak Prescott situation where, like, Trubisky, like, is hurt or if he's not good, you got a backup that you at least believed in to draft him. Even if it's high, like, it has to happen. Like, you can't just sit on another egg of Trubisky potential. And if it is a stinker, then what do you look like? Mm-hmm. A bad organization.
I mean, hey. I've heard some rumors that they might bring someone in or they might trade for someone to give competition to Trubisky. So,
which is also like this quarterback class or this free agent quarterback class is kind of interesting just because there's just guys that are all over the place, all different types of ages and skill levels. So just have to wait and see. But let's take a break and then we'll get into some combine talks.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, Brice, the combine. I'll be completely honest with you. It's not my biggest thing on the NFL calendar. I like the combine. I don't feel like I should plan my day around the combine. Unless it's my job, which technically it kind of is. So I definitely watched part of the combine, but for the most part, you're only there for the 40 times and seeing people catch footballs. And I'm really there for the commentary. I think the commentary about what goes on in the combine is more entertaining than what's actually happening.
Did you watch both networks coverage or only one?
I watched only one. So I only watched the one with who was wow, that's bad. I can't even remember names today.
Is it NFL Network or ESPN?
It was whoever. I think ESPN had the one with Primetime.
Okay.
Then I watched the one with Primetime. I think it was either one because I was watching it on the stream because I was not at my apartment, my place of living. So, regardless, here we are. What are we going to do about people like CeeDee Lamb, who is essentially going to be the next Jerry Rice, apparently? Because that's what the combine does. This is my problem with the combine. Everybody freaks out over numbers. You ran this fast. You run like a 4.3 or you run a sub 4.3 and all of a sudden you're the next coming of Jesus Christ or something like that. People freak out. Or I just find it funny how the combine has kind of become golf in a weird way as far as the commentary. Somebody's running, right? And it's just like right? They get through the line in the 40-yard dash. And then they take a second. The commentator is like, woof. That guy, 6'7", 240, man, 4'6", incredible.
Athletes are amazing. First round pick.
That's what guys do, and it's all over Twitter, and you just see that. And I mean, granted, that CeeDee Lamb play where he wasn't the 40 time, but he comes out, he cuts out of a route and catches that pass that was a really good catch, and then everybody's just like, whoa, this guy. I will say this though, when you see guys who are projected first round and you see stuff like that, you're just like, oh, that's why.
Yeah, that's true.
Because sometimes you can see stuff on the field, from college games, where you're just you can't really tell who is, you can see, if you're a real scout, you probably can tell. But if you're not a scout for football, sometimes you can't really tell, what makes this guy better unless it's extremely drastic on the field differences. But
you'll see a guy from a lower conference.
Yeah, dominate.
Yeah. First, and he's a third round. But yet somebody else from a bigger conference doesn't have those same numbers. And you think, oh, he's a first.
Yeah. And then you see what CeeDee Lamb did and displayed, and you're just like, oh man, that's what it is. This is that thing. And then you'll see guys I believe I am part of the Jalen Hurts support group fan club, and he did a fantastic job at the combine showing people that, he's a quarterback. He throws the football. He's not going to play running back or wide receiver or tight end or whatever skill position you want him to play besides quarterback, because that's what he grew up to play his whole life. So what did he do? He threw at the combine and did a fantastic job, made up for what happened during senior day, during the Senior Bowl, and he looked the part. Had some really nice throws, threw some bombs. I'm hyped. I am hyped to see him go in the second or third round, because I think that's what's going to happen. And newsflash, I would really like the Saints to throw the flyer out there for him, because I think our team, newsflash, has a lot of good parts already, and we can put our efforts into the future, because I don't personally believe that Taysom Hill is the guy.
I mean, listen, if you're ready for that position battle in about a year after this season between Taysom Hill and Jalen Hurts,
I'm taking Jalen Hurts for sure. He's just better Taysom Hill.
I feel what you're saying. I mean, people do overreact to the draft a lot. But it's like, because they call it the biggest job interview an NFL player is going to have, because obviously it's probably broadcast, it's prime time, everybody can watch you, everybody can see you, what they call it, the Underwear Olympics.
That's essentially what it is.
And, I think it's just, you have to think about as a scout, they say the combine is a day where you make some money or you lose money. Either you were a 5th round pick and because of what you did moved you up to the 4th or 3rd round, or you were a 5th round pick and you stay there. Because there's not everybody that will. Like I have to read some reports. Everybody said Jake Fromm really didn't have a great combine. He looked like an average in every way. He looks average in body, he looks average in arm, looks average in everything, and that's why everybody didn't like him at Georgia. And and so basically it was like, well, Jake Fromm didn't make him no money yesterday. It seemed like he kept the same amount. He might have lost a couple of dollars, just depends. And it just really depends on, what stands out to you and what you're looking for. Obviously, if you're talking about your own individual team, you may be like, oh, we have these weaknesses, so I'm looking at this position group and I'm trying to see, I think he'd fit with us. Oh, he runs a 4.4. Oh God, he's so fast and we need him because we need a deep threat or something like that. Things like that. And, I feel like that the combine is important, but it isn't everything, as you've said. And I honestly feel like the combine is more for those guys between the rounds of 2 to 7 to either solidify themselves or to get up and move up. Like, basically, all Jalen Hurts really did in that situation, it was improve himself and make people be like, okay, he looks better. We might want to really look into him more. And remember, the reason why this also isn't as big of a deal, because every team has pro days. So all these players are going to have another day to work out for NFL teams. And that's who is more truly interested in you, the ones who show up to your pro day at your school. And then you get to work with the people that you have played with. Like, think about it. When Oklahoma's pro day come along, he'll have CeeDee Lamb he can throw to instead of just any wide receiver out there. And he can show out and show people like, hey, I can play this game at a high level and I'm a quarterback. Other quarterbacks can solidify themselves and say that they know that they are ready to be a potential franchise quarterback. Running backs, same way. Like, remember, running backs, you can find a running back at any round of the draft and they can be a guy who can contribute solidly for you.
Listen, running back is the most devalued. It's become so crazy how guys they've been devalued just because of how skillful guys have become at that position, to the point to where not only is it something that like your body deteriorates faster as a running back than probably any other position in the NFL, just from a punishment standpoint. Not only that, but you're probably one of the more all-around skilled positions that you have to be in order to get some playing time. And because of that, guys coming out the 3rd, 4th round, 5th round guys are still probably equally as talented enough to get some play time in running back by committee, because that's what the NFL likes to do now. It's no longer just a one bell cow, DeMarco Murray back in in 2014, toting it 35 times.
The only team that does that now is probably Tennessee.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry, because he never came out really. And they got some decent running backs behind him. He just, Derrick Henry. And I guess maybe Zeke a little bit, but they kind of give him breaks too. Outside of that, yeah, everybody does a running back in my community.
Yeah, like nobody's out here bell cowing super crazy anymore. Because at the end of the day, you got to be able to do it all. Like nobody wants a guy who can't catch out the backfield, who can't block, who can't run some wide receiver routes, because that just significantly stifles your offense to be a certain level or a certain play style. And everybody wants to play super fast, be open, all around the field, run routes, stretch the defense, all that kind of stuff. So running backs are just an interesting topic to me, because either you're going to get, unless he's Christian McCaffrey, Saquon, you're not taking somebody in the first round who's a running back, because why bother when you can go find Mostert on the 7th round or cut from 2 teams and there's a practice squad guy.
So, question, not to cut you off, but so obviously the 2 top running backs in this class are Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin and DeAndre Swift from Georgia. So do you think one of them will be selected in the first round? Because some people are projecting them in that range. Or do you think because they're devalued as a position?
I don't think it would be. I don't know if they will or not. For the players, because I actually like running backs. Like I love running backs. They're one of my favorite positions. 2 of the jerseys that I own personally are both running backs, Reggie Bush and Alvin Kamara. I love running backs. However, as an organization, a franchise, I don't know if drafting a running back in the first round is going to change a difference. If I can feel like I can take them in the second round, like they might be first round talent, but just because their talent is first round doesn't mean that the position is really going to be taken there. Like it'd be really late. It'd be like probably early second round guys. But if there's somebody better out there, even at like a corner or linebacker or like a pass rusher, like I'd rather take a chance on a pass rusher than a running back who can honestly be more of a safe pick, in my opinion. Especially if they're already scouted to be first round talent, that feels more of like a safe pick rather than something that's not. Because when was the last time a running back failed, like at a draft? I guess Todd Gurley, but that's not really his fault. Like he has arthritis. Like he still was good when he was good. Maybe even like Darren McFadden, he wasn't a bust, so to speak. He was really good for a while. Kareem Hunt, but who was it who played for KC for a while? Before the
Kareem Hunt era?
Yeah. Who was also he was a fantasy stud. And I can't even remember him anymore. Wow. My football memory is losing it.
Yeah, I don't.
He was really good, man. He'll come back to me. Regardless, running backs just don't fail as often as we think they do. Especially if once they've established that they're good in the NFL and you see where they were drafted. Guys usually in the top now I think of one. Alabama running backs have a tendency to kind of drop off on their relevancy. Who played for Green Bay?
Eddie Lacy.
Yeah. And then
obviously Trent Richardson.
Yeah, those are the 2. Those are the only
Mark Ingram's still around.
Yeah, and Mark Ingram was drafted he was drafted in the first round, but I think it was a later round. But yeah, we need to take a break because this has been going on too long, but we'll get into some NFL news coming up.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
All right, so Brice, some NFL news. I think first things first, we have to talk about this AJ Green franchise tag situation. The guy is 31. He did not want to be tagged again, did not want to come back to the Bengals. He was ready to move on. There's been reports that said that in order for Joe Burrow, Joey B, Mr. Baller himself, to go play for the Bengals, you got to have AJ Green on your roster. And they are going to franchise tag AJ Green. How do you feel? How does this make you feel as a football fan, as a man of the people, Brice Lewis, Mr. Faithful Man, the man of faith?
Yes, sir. Mr. King Wholesome, I know. I mean, I understand why they did it. I mean, AJ, like I said, he did prefer to be franchised. I don't think he particularly didn't want to play for him. I just think he was just like, listen, I'm not trying to get franchised again. And honestly, if I have to leave, that's fine. Like, I have no problem leaving, you know? But, I mean, here's the thing. You have to think about this now. The Bengals are doing this for a reason. If you think about the weapons they have now, they have AJ, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, and Alden Tate. They have three good receivers and a good running back. So they have weapons for Joe Burrow now. Which is, I think, is why they did it. They wanted to get Burrow in there, give him some weapons, and then if they can get the offensive line straight, they think Burrow could light the league. And, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, that's one thing you always want to give to if you're going to start a rookie young quarterback, because you want to give him weapons. You don't want to give him no talent and to expect him to come out there his first year and, you know, light up the league.
Right.
You know, I think this is why they did it. They made the move because they needed to make sure that they had people in place for him to throw to and to give the ball to. And now I think with AJ Green coming back, that gives them the ability to do it. I mean, I honestly could look at this as a 1-year rental for AJ in terms of like, okay, we just want you here for Joe Burrow's when Joe Burrow's here. You know? Because remember, AJ didn't play last year. So they're like, well, let's keep you around. We'll pay you, obviously, franchise tag. That's top 5 salary money for a receiver. And we'll see what happens. And if Joe Burrow has a great year, I'm sure they'll let AJ walk, but they're helping Burrow have a good transition in terms of talent, in terms of weapons around him going into the league. You know, so that's what I think they're doing when they made that decision. Do you feel anywhere about the same about that, or?
It's just kind of, I don't know, man. It's, you want your rookie to feel like you have to show that. I said this a few weeks ago. You have to show players you're drafting, especially quarterbacks, that you are trying to win. Because when the Bengals were essentially in tank mode, right, or when Miami was in tank mode, the Bengals were essentially tanking games too. But it's hard to tank in the NFL or perceive the way tanking is, like is it in the NBA or even in the MLB, because tanking can be seen as egregious in the NBA because folks will literally just put out their worst roster and just lose games in order to get into the draft lottery. NFL is a bit different. If you're bad, you're pretty bad regardless of who you put out there.
No player's going to sit out here and risk their health.
Yeah, to tank.
On purpose to lose.
Right. But at the same time, from the Bengals were not very good and their offense struggled. And you could obviously see that, their quarterback who was starting in the first place was getting lit up. Like he wasn't like, he was hurt a few times. Andy Dalton was getting lit up. It was not just like, oh, Andy Dalton was not good. Andy Dalton was okay. And when he wasn't okay, he was dying on the ground. So you can't bring in your rookie quarterback to change things and you haven't addressed the offensive line. So they have to know that and you have to have weapons. So I agree, you need weapons, but at the same time, it was kind of seeming like we knew AJ Green was not going to be on this team no matter where they landed in the draft. So now it seems like either Joe Burrow and his agent or his camp has given the Bengals an ultimatum, but the thing is, Joe Burrow also said he doesn't care where he plays. Wherever he gets drafted, he's going to play football. So I don't know what to believe. I don't know who to believe, what side is doing, or whatever. I will say this though, I feel bad for AJ Green, but at the same time, AJ Green will be playing with Joe Burrow, so maybe that will be cool. You never know. Like, it might just work
Burrow
out.
The Green connection.
Yeah, but at the same time, from what I hear, the Bengals organization is not good. Their practice facilities and stuff are archaic. And
their GM,
their owner is the GM. Like, I've never seen a situation like that be good.
Scout team.
Yeah, it's just not good. So maybe this is more of a sign of I want to be free rather than it has anything to really do with being with Joe Burrow. But yeah. So next batch of news, we have a few more minutes here in this segment. You want to do the Nick Foles thing?
Mm-hmm. That works. Yeah, let's talk about that. Nick Foles, obviously, last year was signed by the Jacksonville Jaguars to an $88 million contract, 3-year deal. But the Jaguars also drafted a guy late, I believe, 6th-round pick, named Gardner Minshew, from Washington State. Obviously, they weren't really expecting him to be anything, I think. I think they just maybe drafted him maybe to be a body, potentially a backup. Well, Nick Foles got hurt in the first game.
Of course. After throwing a dart. I will never forget that game because people were like, Nick Foles, this is happening. They let go of their previous quarterback and Nick Foles just he's looking good. And then Nick Foles isn't up. What's happening? Mm-hmm. Oh no. And then Gardner Minshew came out.
Yeah, and Gardner Minshew played well in the games he played. I mean, he was one of the reasons why they were competitive in the first half of the season. I mean, he's a guy who he has the moxie, he has a lot of stories behind him. He's a guy who I think people got behind with like Minshew mania a little bit.
Hashtag dad jeans.
Exactly. The historic stories of him, wearing the jock strap around campus and all them stuff. And I think when they looked at it on paper, Nick Foles came back. That for about 3 games that he came back, they got blown out all those games offensively, except the first one. They really didn't do that well. And Nick Foles, you saw his limitations of Nick Foles. Mm-hmm. Nick Foles is a Joe Flacco. If you don't have a good offensive line, he is a sitting duck. He is not moving around. Minshew can move, so he's more mobile, and he's also more of a anticipation accurate passer, I believe. So they probably feel like based off what they've seen right now, I guess we have to sit here and say that Gardner Minshew is the best quarterback out of the two of them, and he's the 6th-round pick, and we're paying a guy $88 million to be better than him, and he wasn't. So we got to get him off the team because we can't bench Nick Foles and also be paying him $20 million a year.
No, that's true. I also will say that their team kind of self-imploded at the same time as the whole Minshew thing. They still have some offensive weapons, but if you look at it from this perspective, their defense is not as strong as it was 2 years ago. It's not as strong as it was last year because they traded away Jalen Ramsey because he couldn't get along with Coughlin. And at the end of the day, their team, I don't know what their ceiling is or what their team was. Before they were a borderline Super Bowl contender. Now, I don't know if they can make the playoffs.
And that was with Blake Bortles.
Yeah, that was with Blake Bortles. Like, not with Minshew or Nick Foles, because you would think that if you can have somebody who can throw the ball down the field, you could win something. If you had somebody other than Blake Bortles, you could win something. But at the end of the day, this is where they are. And they're right. You can't just pay somebody this much money and he turns out to be not the guy and just kind of have him sitting around. Mm-hmm. I mean, the only similar comparison to this would be the Dak Prescott thing, right, with Tony Romo. Mm-hmm. And
you could even go even earlier when Russell Wilson got drafted.
Matt
Flynn. They
paid him
I do remember
money. That. They paid him like,
and then Russell won the job.
$70 million.
Yeah, Russell won the job, and then it's just like, oh, well, I guess we gotta get rid of you.
Yeah. So they just had to eat them. Did they just eat them?
I think they kept him for a year because like they didn't make decisions in the season. Like you're not just gonna cut him right out.
Yeah,
you need a backup quarterback. But after that, they like released him.
So what do you think they do here? Like, did they draft another guy?
I mean, they could, but I mean, I think they're.
Are you really sure that Minshew is even the answer? Like, I mean,
that's the thing they're going to see because I mean, he didn't play as bad as Haskins. So
No.
and he played well. Minshew played well. So you feel like you have to do your due diligence to see, okay, if we say you're the number one guy and we give you the whole offseason program as the number one guy with the team that we build and everything around you, are you going to give us what we want next year? This is one of those situations where you kind of want to see, and I guess wait to see what happens after this year. Then remember, Barney Minshew's a 6th round pick. They're not paying him anything. So if he don't work out, they can just cut him and don't pay a dime.
Yeah, that's true.
But if he works out, then probably we're going to have to give this man his extension. So you kind of got to know which one you're going to do here.
I guess my thing is there's no way to tell right now if Minshew is a franchise guy. We think he can be. He was pretty good for his rookie year, but he had no expectations coming into last season. And, there's not many guys that you can say who come in and become a franchise guy like that, except for a select few that's ever done it. And, yeah, Russell Wilson was not who he is today when he first came out, of course. So, of course, people can grow into stuff, but there's also infrastructure that allow Russell Wilson to be who he is. I just don't believe Jacksonville has the infrastructure for Gardner Minshew to become the next great, late round pick quarterback to come take a job and be the franchise guy for the next 8 years or so.
Well, right now, if you think about the Jacksonville Jaguars' history, their greatest quarterback to ever play the game in there is David Garrard. So.
Yeah, it's not good. That's not a good track.
Those were the Reese Jones Jr. years.
Oh man,
what a time!
Different era of football. That was back when we were not passing the ball to people like Chris Johnson. Imagine Chris Johnson today. My God, he would torch the league. Like, I wouldn't even know if he would play.
CJ2K.
He would get his all-purpose scrimmage yards would be
ridiculous.
Otherworldly.
I mean, he kind of is one of the first running backs to actually kind of do that.
Yeah, but it's kind of like if, like how we see the Houston Rockets now, like it was like if Chris Johnson was the Phoenix Suns of 2007 and now, Chris Johnson is retired, but now we're seeing like Christian McCaffrey as like the Houston Rockets, just full on usage rate, running, catching,
doing
everything.
5-6 catches a game, 20-25 carries.
Yeah, like just doing everything.
Literally.
All right. Let's take our final break and then we'll get into our divisional breakdown.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
All right, we just got off last segment talking about Jacksonville, so it's only right that we do our divisional discussion / breakdown on the AFC South, which is one of the weirder divisions in football. Like, it's always kind of competitive, but from a weird sense. It doesn't get to like, oh, these guys could be good until like maybe week 9, because it's always competitive because everybody's kind of like 3-4 and you don't know where anybody's going to play out.
Oh, yeah. The AFC South is just so weird, bro. Like, literally, they look like just all of them look bad.
Yeah, like for week stretches, you'll be like, oh yeah, Houston should run away with the division.
But they don't.
And then Houston will do I almost said Houston Rockets things, do Houston Texan things and be gone, or they just won't look as good, or, somebody will be hurt. Like one of their wide receiver core will instantly be out for the season, and then we're all shaking our heads like, what's Houston doing now? Then Tennessee. Tennessee is weird too because they'll be good, but also not good.
I mean, they've been 9-7 for the last 3 years. Yeah, I think.
But that was with Mariota, and now
9-7. Well, I mean, Tannehill didn't play the whole year, but 9-7 again.
Yeah,
but they made their run. So
yeah, but it was like a good 9-7, this time around.
The reason the division has never been that far away from them. So remember, even last year before this past year, they had a chance to win the division at 9-7.
That's what I'm saying.
I think they could have got 10 wins, but they lost out, and then they finished 9-7. So
and then the Andrew Luck years, which is weird to say because Andrew Luck.
They were 11-5 3 years in a row, and then that's when the offensive line started catching up to them, and then they weren't winning. And then obviously he retired.
And then Jacksonville for a spurt where they had division championship hopes.
Yeah, they had that 1 year of greatness with Blake Bortles.
So who is the favorite right now for this
you
division?
have to go with Houston just because Deshaun Watson is the best quarterback in the division. And,
yeah, for sure.
And so, you always have to go with them going into every year. But the only thing is now that people don't know what Tennessee's going to look like next year. So obviously they're going to probably be the second favorite team because you don't know if they're going to be as good as we saw at the end of the year. Or are they going to just go back to normal, decent Tennessee? You don't really know. We'll have to see what happens there. I mean, Jacksonville, we have no clue what's going to happen with them. I mean, we don't even know how their team's going to look next year. And obviously the Colts, I mean, it really depends on who they get at quarterback. The Colts have talent. They just got to be healthy and get a quarterback. In terms of all the teams in the division, the Colts are probably the bestest constructed team because they have a top 5 offensive line. They have some decent receivers. They have a good running back. They have a better than they used to have defense. Because remember, in Andrew Luck years, the defense for Colts were poor. Now their defense is actually good. They still have some issues, but it's better than what they had. So that's why people feel like with the Colts, if they had a quarterback, they would be pretty much right back in it. You never know, Jameis Winston could go there. And oh
man.
And it's just hard to really know what happens with this division. Usually you just go with the quarterback, and Deshaun right now is the best quarterback in the AFC South. And until another team gets a quarterback up to his level or close, or their team is just purely better than the Houston Texans, I mean, that's really all you can really go with,
Yeah, I don't know. Houston never really figures out to put it all together near the end. They'll be they're one of the hot teams where they'll get hot at the worst possible time. They'll get hot in week 5, 6, and 7, where it doesn't really matter that you're hot. And then they'll coast out for the rest of the season, but they'll coast out by losing in games that they shouldn't.
And they beat the really good teams. They're very inconsistent.
Yeah, they might steal a game from Kansas City, but
then go to
but they'll end
Redskins next week and lose in a 12-9 game.
Yeah, and they'll be instead of being instead of finish out a run 3-4, or I'm sorry, 3-1, they'll be 2-2 or 1-4, but their record's okay because they came out hot in the beginning.
Or never forget, a couple years ago, I think they started 1-4, 1-3, and they won 8 straight.
Yeah,
to get to the playoffs. It is just but the thing about it is just inconsistency. You start off bad, but then you go in the middle of the season to the end good, and then you're okay at the end, and it's just
And then you have to think about who's even the best. Do they even have the best coach in the division?
I honestly no. I think that goes to Mike Vrabel. I think he's the best coach in the division.
Are we sure?
I feel pretty confident just because of what I saw with him in tennis. He knows what, I saw the way he coached in the playoffs, and he honestly, he outcoached Bill Belichick and John Harbaugh, 2 of the best coaches in the NFL. Bill O'Brien, when has he outcoached somebody? Never. The reason why when they win, it's because Deshaun Watson gets them out of trouble, not because Bill O'Brien outcoached somebody.
That's true. That's fair. But I just mean as in I'm not saying that the Colts head coach, I don't know if he is the best, but I think is it fair to say that Bill O'Brien may not be the second best coach in his own division?
That's completely okay. The only reason why he's not the worst is because Doug Marrone just isn't as inept as he is. So, I mean, the coaching in the division isn't the greatest in the world. It's not like you have 4 or 5 solid head coaches. You know, it's not like think about this past year in the NFC South. Even though that's like when we talk about NFC divisions, if you think about the coaches, Sean Payton is considered a great coach. Ron Rivera, before he got fired, was considered a great coach. Bruce Arians is considered a great coach, and Dan Quinn's average. So that's not. That's not.
So you could see where the Falcons fan just came out of you.
I mean, he's decent, but he ain't anything to be writing home about.
We know what your stance is on if he returns next season or not.
I'll be honest. We'll get into that when that conversation comes. But yeah, where the AFC South, you really legitimately sit here and say you have one pretty good coach, then you have a good coach, and then you got bottom of the barrel coaches. So, you know what I'm saying? That's probably why Tennessee's 9-7 every year. They may have talent deficiencies, but they're well coached, and quarterback deficiency. That's why if they get a quarterback, good coaching.
That's the crazy thing, right? Like, they found something in Tannehill, but are we sure that Tannehill's coming back? Like, you know, if it's coming back?
I mean, as far as I know reports, they're going to give him a contract, and they're going to keep him as a quarterback the next couple of years. Because, I mean, really, realistically, it's always that dilemma you're in where it's like, we kind of feel like we can't start over because where we are because of our success. And you can't tell guys that you went to the AFC Championship game, Ryan's not going to be our guy next year. Like, you just can't do that because they're going to be like, well, why not? You know? So you kind of have to go with this and just see what happens. And then and you can always draft the guy next year. Like, or the year after that, like, hey, if Tannehill starts to fall off, it's like, okay, we'll just draft the guy. Or we'll sign a guy, whatever happens in a couple of years.
Jalen Hurts. I'm just saying.
Y'all gonna draft Jalen Hurts? I don't know Mike Vrabel gonna be able to coach up Jalen Hurts out there. He gonna like, Jalen, just hand it to Derrick Henry, man. And then after that, we're gonna do some zone read and we'll be unstoppable.
Just do this. I mean, we have to talk about this eventually, right? What is this contract for Derrick Henry gonna look like?
It'll probably be somewhere in Ezekiel range. Between Ezekiel and Todd Gurley.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's weird to say.
Because you know Saquon's going to shatter that when he gets his deal.
Yeah, but are we sure he should or anybody should be reaching $90 million as a running back? Like
what? So do you feel like the only person in the league who deserves that is like Christian McCaffrey just because of what he has to do?
Maybe, but even then, so it's not even like they deserve the money. I feel like they deserve it, so they should get paid it. But at the same time, is it smart for organization to do it? I don't know.
Really
I don't think so.
You don't really want to spend a quarter of your cap on a running back, but
yeah, like it's just not going to happen, especially for a guy. Like there's only like maybe 3 or 4 guys who you can consider pseudo bell cows because nobody's like a supreme one except for Derrick Henry. Mm-hmm. Like we haven't had one who was like even Marshawn Lynch wasn't like toting the rock 30 times during the prime eras. Mm-hmm. They were still splitting, like there were still like some carry splits going on. So I don't know, man. But what I do know is got to wrap up the pod. So a good week this week, Brice.
Yes,
Proud
sir.
of you.
Yes,
good job.
Appreciate it.
So thank you for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast. Don't forget to follow us on our social medias, so our Facebook, our Instagram, and our Twitter. And don't forget to rate and review us on whatever podcast platform you do choose to listen to me and Mr. Faithful over here. Mm-hmm. We'll be back next Monday to do some similar things, talk all things NFL, XFL, a little bit of college if we get it in there. You never know. But till next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.